press record on here, see if it's recording. Does it come up on yours to say it's recording? Or?
Yeah, it says it's recording at the top.
Right, okay, cool. Right, hello everyone. Lee Ashby here from Motocross Memories Worldwide. I've got an amazing interview for you this evening. I've got none other than former motocross world champion and AMA Hall of Famer. Been introduced into that, Mr. Bob Moore. How are you doing, Bob?
Hello everyone. Fantastic, thank you.
Awesome to meet you and get to speak to you tonight. Everyone's been really excited about it in the group all week, so yeah, they're going to be really overwhelmed with this one, I think.
Right, well,
then,
when you said that, I feel like, sheesh, where's this guy, Bob Moore, Hall of Famer? I'm not used to being introduced like that. I'm just some guy that used to race. Have been fortunate to race a motorcycle for a living, so it's kind of, I view myself as that way.
And honestly, Bob, in my Facebook group all week, everyone's been like, I've obviously been putting pictures of you in there saying I'm speaking to you. Everyone's been really excited about it, so they're looking forward to it. So if I get on with the questions for you then, please. Right, the first one I got for you. How did you get into motocross? And what is your earliest memory of the sport? And what bike did you first have?
Okay, so the first time I was introduced was age 6 years old. My father used to race as an amateur. And he bought me a MR50, Honda MR50, and that was my my first start to riding. Again, I was fortunate to have some land, some property, and I was able to build a little track on, and that was it. Every day after school, straight on the bike until dark, filling it up with gas and riding.
So you got the bug early then?
Yeah.
That was cool then, that was cool. Okay, next one I got you. What riders did you look up to and idolise when you were young? And did you ever get to actually race any of your heroes?
The second part, no, unfortunately. The riders I looked up to were probably Roger DeCoster.
Yeah.
Some of the other ones were the actual, that's funny that you say that. The only rider I was that I got an autograph was the late great Marty Schmidt. And then I was kind of looked up to these guys when I was at an early age. Yeah. And also at an early age, as I said, Roger DeCoster, it's because I saw pictures, growing up, 9, 10, 11 years old of the Grand Prix style tracks. And those just were amazing. And I'm like, man, one day I'd love to just go there. So even though I grew up like a lot of Americans in the traditional, start with the Supercross and going into the nationals and everything like that, my heart was always set on more the motocross style tracks and stuff. So that's kind of where that whole thing went. But I didn't get a chance to race against Roger or anybody. But yeah, that was the start of it.
Okay, cool. Next one I got for you. Who would you say were your closest rivals over your career? And who did you enjoy racing with the most and why?
Well, I guess when it all started, I'd say probably the one of the guys that I had a great time, and he became, he still is a good friend of mine, is Ron Lachine. My first year in 1985 racing the nationals, that was the year he rode that amazing Honda and just completely killed everybody that year. That was just something, I just was mind boggled by how fast he was on that bike. And, me being just 17, 18 years old, kind of just getting started. Yeah. But that's kind of what I envisioned. From there, once I got kind of to Europe, I kind of looked at everyone as like, okay, they're my friends, but they're also my enemies. I got to try to beat these guys. So it was a little bit like, okay, once I got to Europe, I was like, okay, let's just try to win this thing and try to do better each and every week.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, next one I got you. What was your favorite race bike during your career? And was there a particular team that you really enjoyed racing for as well?
Well, those are two different answers. Probably one of my favorite bikes, just because it looked so cool, was my 1987 Mugen Honda. I raced Killingchi. I also raced in England that year as well, I believe. I don't remember what track that was in 80, or that would have been 87. I do remember going to Killing Chi though on that bike, and I had all the white kit, and it was such a cool bike. The fastest bike that I had was obviously my KTM back in '91, and that 125 was the fastest 125 I ever rode in my life. And then going back to my favorite team was clearly the year I won my world championship, and with Michele Rinaldi and the Rinaldi team in 1994. So that was by far my favorite team that I raced for.
Okay, cool. To be fair, a lot of people go on about that bike that you won the championship. They loved the whole black bike, black kit.
Wasn't that cool? It was just
very cool.
It was so much different that everyone was like, man, black, it's so weird and all that. But together with the right, and a lot of people don't know this, but the Yamahas that year were not the fastest bike for sure. And in the early part of that season, I really struggled, just especially even getting starts because the bike was kind of down on horsepower.
That's interesting.
But the best thing that it did was the chassis, the suspension on that bike.
Yeah.
And just the way I could ride it, it just suited me. It wasn't the fastest bike, but I could ride that thing longer and faster, because it handled so well. So that was kind of the positives of it for sure.
Oh, that's very interesting. Right, next one. What was your favorite race number? Did it change throughout the years, and was there any particular reason for having and wanting a certain number, if you could?
That year that I went, because I kind of did my numbers based on my results. So I basically, going over the years that I was racing, I was after the first year I was 9th, and then the second year I was 7th, and then I went to 8th, and then I went from 8 to 4 to 2. And I was second 3 years in a row, 1990, 1991, both to Donnie Schmidt and Stefan Everts. And then in 92, I went to 50 team and rode for Rinaldi and got second there. So you'd think my favorite number would have been 2, but it wasn't. Actually, when I went back in 94, back to the 125 class, I hadn't ridden the class. So at those stages, you just had to pick a number that was over 40. So I'm like, what number looks good? And I always kind of liked Greg Albertine's number, 67. I just thought that was a really cool looking number, but I wasn't going to use this number because I'm like, that's lame. I got to come up with my own. So I just switched it around. I said 76. I said, this is cool. Let's run 76. So that was it.
That's good reason. Next one. What track / venue did you least enjoy racing at, and why?
Least? Well, I that actually, let's see, probably the only race that we ended up having to boycott was the Spanish Grand Prix in 89 or 90? I remember going to this track. The organizers just thought that they could water the straight to the start straight and that would be enough, and the rest of the track was just a dust bowl. We ended up not even racing that on Sunday because we're like, look, no one can see. It's a danger to everyone. The championship had already been kind of decided. That would have been in 1990. So that would have been probably my least favorite. Obviously we only raced there once and that was it.
What a good experience that one then. Next one I've got for you. What has been your favorite racing gear that you wore during your career? Was there a certain reason for a particular kit that you wore that you liked during your career?
Obviously I have to go back to the black Chesterfield gear.
Wasn't it Kings? Was it Kings?
Yeah, it was Kings that they produced at Kings, and the BFA made the helmets. It was just, again, the design concept of it was so unique, and the marketing that Chesterfield did at the time was just fantastic. I also liked in 91, 92 when we were all in the white
White,
gear.
yeah,
You
that's been
remember
mentioned a lot. Yeah.
Donnie Schmidt, Alex Puzar, and myself, they
Mm.
called us the ice cream men because we were all in white, head to toe. So
Yeah.
that kind of looked pretty cool too.
Very cool. Yeah, very
But
cool.
I
That
would say
was
my favorite was the 94, the black gear.
good choice. Good choice. Next one I've got for you. Did you have any superstitions or anything when you were racing, or anything specifically you had to do on race days?
No, I was not kind of down to that. I mean, being a religious person myself,
Yeah.
I kind of had my own views on things. I think
Hmm.
if anything, you get into a routine.
Hmm.
It's like you put your left boot on first, and then
Yeah.
and maybe if anything, I had a kind of a funny feeling about wearing blue gear.
Okay.
Blue for whatever reason, but whatever. I mean that. No, I didn't really have anything that affected me, and it was funny early on. I did, if I'm honest, I did. And it was like, as soon as I made this decision myself to say, you know what, there's not a chance that I could do everything the same and wear the same exact clothes and do the same result, because in a day, you could even think a different thought and it's already changed. So I'm like,
Yes.
how in the world that if I put the same boots on or the same socks or underwear or whatever, is it going to help me?
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
sooner I got away from that, and then
Yeah.
I had good results based on it, I'm like, okay, out the door, I'm going for it. Here we go.
Seems like a lot of the guys get quite hung up on it, and I think it would be quite mentally draining at points.
It is because again, it really did me in the
Mm.
very beginning. But it wasn't until I thought to myself, look, if you're trying to get the same result, then you really have to do everything the exact same. And there's no way you can do that. I mean, I've seen people put their helmets in a certain area, and use the same goggle or whatever. I mean, it's just the
Yeah.
same number of tear off. I mean, it
Yeah.
goes
It's
on and
endless.
on.
Endless. Yeah.
You can never figure that part out. For some riders, it's really important for sure.
Mm, mm. Okay, cool. Where did you actually race as a youth rider, and did you travel much as a youngster? And obviously, what sort of experiences did you gain before? Obviously, you went pro and everything.
So I was blessed to have a father that again raced as an amateur, but more importantly, his business was building motorcycle trailers.
Oh, right, okay.
So my early days of getting to any races was my dad would build a trailer. He would deliver it to a motocross race.
Mhm.
He would he would say, "Hey Bob, you want to go to a race?" I'm like, "Yay!" And then I would jump in the truck. We put everything in the back of the pickup. He'd sell the trailer at the weekend, and we would drive back home. And so again, I was really fortunate that my father, his income and everything was around the motocross
Mhm.
sport. So I traveled virtually every weekend from the age of 7 all the way until the day I retired. Basically, was my travel. I mean, over here in America, I raced all the amateur races each and every weekend. There was really never a downtime unless you were injured. But yeah, that was it.
Next one I got for you. Did you have any specific injuries during your career that you feel held you back at a certain time from even achieving even more in your career? And if so, what and how was that?
Well, probably not a lot of people know this, but
Hmm.
unfortunately, I had broken a bone and was injured every year I was professional.
Really?
The year I won my title,
Yep.
I broke my tib fib and dislocated my ankle in December at the Bologna Motor Show at the end of the year. So fortunately,
Oh,
I
yeah.
made it through the season without getting
Yeah.
injured.
Yeah.
But every year I had at least one injury.
Wow.
So it did probably, that did have some effect on me, I think. But
Mhm.
even the years that I was second 3 years in a row,
Mhm.
I don't want to say it was because of injury. I could have achieved better or won that championship. I think that just came down to my lack of training. And, I don't want to say this in a bad way, but I was kind of lazy at the time. And
Okay.
it really wasn't until I got in my later age of racing that I really buckled down and did my training for it. But that's kind of it.
Oh, that's interesting. Didn't know that. Next one I got. What other sports do you like watching or even doing?
I love golf. Fortunate to be able to play golf here, even during this pandemic going on. So I do like golf. Any other sports, I mean, I've been involved with motorsports my whole life, so I'm so wrapped up in that, even with my daily job, that I really, really enjoy motorsports. And then again, on my off times and when I get to have fun, I go out and play golf.
Well, I'm just thinking of that subject. Do you actually still keep in touch, like keeping watching the World Championship or American Supercross or anything? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So again, I work for an agency called Wasserman, and I've been with the company it's going on 19 years now. When I stopped racing, I was the team manager of American Honda back here in the States for 2 years. And then immediately after that, I became a rider agent. Just some guy came up out of the blue and said, "Hey, Bob, I think you'd be a good agent." I'm like, "What? I've never done that before, but hey, I'll give it a shot." And I've been fortunate enough that a lot of riders knew me and knew from my racing in Europe and everything else. So they trusted me and went on doing that way, or going about that way. So that is my daily deal now. I am very involved with the Supercross, Motocross, although more so now I'm focused on MotoGP, and I have athletes and I'm doing kind of the road side of things now.
Okay, cool.
And it's not because I don't love motocross. It's been my lifeblood for forever. I kind of have this ambition to learn something different and to try to go out something a little bit different, and that's been MotoGP, and I really, really like it. I've been involved now in the MotoGP side of things for just about 10 years now. So,
all right, thanks for that. I did have a question for that later, so you did cover that well there, so that was cool. Next one I've got. What was your favourite track, firstly as a youth rider, and then during your pro career, what was your favourite track as well?
So my youth career, I would probably have to say a track that I kind of grew up during my early high school. So 14, 15, 16 years old, would have been a track called Indian Dunes in California. We used to go there all the time and have races there. I really liked that track. And then when I became from even racing as professional, none of the tracks here in America I didn't really like so much, if I'm honest. I really enjoyed Europe. There's a track in Czech Republic that I really liked, but probably the best track that I could say overall was Payerne, Switzerland. And that was, you go there and basically it was all grass, and it was just a traditional motocross, world motocross track. And that was by far probably the best track for me. That one and Majora, I really like Majora in Italy as well.
Very nice tracks. Next one, what has been your most memorable race or meeting that you did, and why does it still stick in the memory even today?
That would have been probably the German Grand Prix in the year I won my world championship, 1994. A track that I can still remember sitting on the starting line and just going, "Oh my gosh, the championship's coming down to the last 3 points. What am I going to do?" I'm kind of nervous. I really I said a prayer and I said, "You know what, God, if this is meant to be, it's meant to be. I'm going to go out and give it my all." And the gate dropped. I got second or third within the first lap. I was leading. I won by, I don't know, a bunch of seconds that race. I went 1-1 that day. Unfortunately, Kiko Kyoto had, who was my rival, who was second place. He had bike problems the first race, and ended up leading that weekend with a 30-plus point lead. So that would have been probably the one that stood out the most for me. That just kind of let everything go. Let all the nerves, this is something that, I had my childhood dream was to be a world champion. And it took me 9 years of racing in Europe to achieve that. And so the pressure that I put on myself each and every time I went out was just, it got to a point where I was literally going to go crazy. So it was one of the things I just said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. It's either it's going to happen or not. I firmly believed in my heart that I would be, champion. Yeah. That was the one that kind of stood out for sure.
Yeah. Did the fact that you had so many runner-up in the World Championships, did that sort of make the pressure a bit more, or?
Yes, because it proved the fact that I could do it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I knew that I had the ability to do it, and I had the machinery to do it. It just had to kind of all make sense. People ask me this all the time. When that year that I won the world championship was by far my easiest year, and a lot of champions, when you talk to them and ask them, say, how hard was it, and they say, generally it just became easy. I was prepared really well. My team was prepared really well. We had really great motorcycle, and everything just clicks. It just goes. Of course, you have a bad race here or there, but it just became so easy. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it was really, really easy that year.
Spot on. Right, the next one I got for you. Who were your closest friends in the paddock and around the pits, and how easy is it to block out that friendship once the gate drops?
So I often gravitated to other Americans. Donnie Schmidt, who I became really close, good friends with. We lived together in the same house. His wife and my his wife and him and my wife and I lived in the same house in Italy. So we trained together, ate together. I mean, we did everything together during that 1992 season. So I obviously had a really good relationship with Donnie. I also had a really good relationship with Mike Keeley. And not so much with Parker, because with Trampas, I was kind of, he was on his own doing his, kind of his own thing. Although I became friends with him, and also Bader Monet. I was always, really close with Bader as well.
Yeah, I did an interview with Bader. That was pretty cool as well.
Yeah.
So you obviously raced in the American Supercross scene as well when you were younger. I didn't realize you actually won a Supercross title as well. Is that right? 125 West.
Yeah, it's crazy that it was the first year that they had the Supercross 125s that year, and there was an East Coast and a West Coast, and I was able to win the West Coast Supercross title that year. Believe me when I say this, it's not because I was the best rider. I was really consistent. Yeah. I just stayed on two wheels. I made every main. I finished 4th, 5th, 2nd. I won one race. That was the Dallas Supercross. But that was it. I would literally get a 4th in one race, and the guy that was in front of me in the points, he didn't qualify. So that's the way it went that whole season. So I kind of fell into it. I was like, okay, cool, I win. But yeah, that was way back when.
So obviously you did Supercross and the Motocross. Is it safe to say you preferred the outdoor Motocross and obviously going to Europe as well?
100%. And again, that was maybe one of the other reasons that kind of really drove me to want to compete in the World Championship, was because I could see in the early 80s that America was really focused around Supercross. Not that I didn't enjoy it. I like Supercross and I love watching it. It's just that I kind of had this childhood dream of being a motocross world champion and world motocross champion. So I just gravitated more towards that. So when I got the opportunity in 2006, I jumped at it. I said, I'm leaving America and I have to go and try to compete in the world championship.
Awesome. Right. Okay. The next one. Do you have any regrets from your career? Was there ever a particular bike or a team that you wish you hadn't rode for a season or anything like that?
No, I don't.
No?
I think everything, was meant to happen for a reason. I think if anything, I had a regret, as I kind of stated before, maybe it was the fact that I didn't train hard enough in the beginning. And I think maybe if I did that, maybe there would have been a few different results towards the end. But maybe not. Who knows? I don't know. Again, it took me, like I said, a lot longer than a lot of other people to succeed. but I wouldn't take anything away. I think, like I said, any regret would have just been, I wish I would have maybe worked a little bit harder for it in the beginning.
Okay, fair enough. Can you tell us a funny story from your racing day memories?
Funny story. This one kind of sticks in my head. I think somebody asked me this before. Again, I had a really good close relationship with Donnie Schmidt, and we would travel oftentimes to different events. I went to a race in where was it? It was in Austria, and we came. He had a horrible day that day, and we were driving back together that day, and I'm like, hey, let's stop and eat. And he's like, oh, he's so frustrated. He was so mad at himself. He's like, no, I'm not going to eat. I'm just going to drive back. I'm like, dude, we got to eat somewhere. And so we stop at this gas station and we get gas. And this is a guy who, literally, giving you a short background of what Donnie Schmidt was like. I mean, he measured his food. He would never do salt, pepper, never do any sugar. I mean, this guy was a fanatic with his diet and just his training regimen and everything else. So we pull into this one gas station thing, and he was just so mad because, well, for one, I beat him that day. That ticked him off. And it was like in the beginning part of the season, that was like probably the 4th round or whatever. And we stopped into this gas station, and he just freaks out. I'm like, dude, I'll get the gas, don't worry. And he freaks out. He goes into the little gas station market, and he grabs 2 large Snicker bars. And it literally would have been like seeing him get a pile of cocaine and start taking it, because I saw those Snicker bars. I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? He's like, I'm just so bad. And he started chomping those things down. And I was like laughing my head off. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the funniest thing ever. Because anyone who knew Donnie knew that the Snickers bar was not anything to do with his daily routine. So that was kind of one thing that kind of stuck out. I mean, I'm sure if I think about it, I could have a whole bunch more. I had such a great time, and I still do. Again, working with the MotoGP circuit, I get to travel still to Europe quite often. Being involved or being in Europe and traveling to Europe since I've been 18 years old, that's 30 plus years. So, I mean, Europe is a big part of my heritage and my home anyway. So, I have so many different memories, and I get to still do enjoy those, going to different events and stuff. But that's the one thing that kind of stuck out of my head is like, man, I must have laughed with my wife, and I was just digging Donnie the whole week, or weeks even leading out there. I'm like, when are you gonna have another Snickers bar, But after that day, I think he went. So we went from that race, and then he went to we went to Italy. From there at Malpensa, and he won all 3 motos. And then we went to another race the next weekend, or the 2 weeks later, and won all 3 motos there. And that was really when he kind of stood out as far as being the championship contender.
See, you should have had Snickers all along. Yeah.
Well, I was chomping those things anyway, so don't get me wrong. Because I'm a big sweet fan. I love those things, but
same.
Not on his side.
No, cool. That's a cool story. Okay, next one. I've got my home track is actually Fox Hill in Swindon in the UK. So I've asked a lot of the guys this. I've asked a lot of the guys what they thought of the track, and obviously you've won there. Your thoughts about Fox Hill personally?
That's probably one of the most special tracks for me in Europe. I traditionally like the tracks. It's fast, it's high speed, it's also dangerous. My record there in Fox Hill is probably maybe unlike a lot of others. I either won the Grand Prix or I went to the hospital. So I had a really bad accident I won the Grand Prix in '92 on the 250 class, when they had the 3 motos. And '93 on the Suzuki, I kind of endoed over one of the big hills, and I shattered my ankle, and that ended my '93 season. '94, I came back and I won the Grand Prix. So it was one of those love-hate relationships. I mean, traditionally it was a track that, again, when it didn't rain,
Mm.
which is quite often. We had more non-race mud races than we did mud races, but it just was a track that, again, I thought it really brought out a special talent in the rider because of the speed.
Mm.
You go that fast, and sliding with both tires, going through some of those high-speed corners and off-camber corners and stuff. It makes you really, really a good rider, to be able to do that. And so, yeah, again, I'd say Fox Hills is one of the all-time for sure.
Yeah, personal memories of that was really cool. Like you said, I think the 92 was when you was racing with Herring. I think Herring might have won the first race,
Yeah.
and then you won the overall, I remember. Everyone's been in the group talking about your big crash in 93, was it? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and saying that your bike was going over and over, and the people that saw it was a really bad one. And then obviously, remember you all in the white with Donny Schmidt and Puzo all in the white gear. That was amazing as well. And then obviously when you come back in 94, I'm pretty sure you won it.
Yeah.
Won the GP on the 125 the year you won the World Championship as well. So very cool memories for sure.
Yeah, no, it was like I said, an amazing facility. I always loved coming back to, going over to England. Obviously because I speak the language, but I've got a lot of friends in England, and if it weren't for the weather when I was racing over there, I probably would have lived there because, again, I really enjoyed the people and stuff. But from a training perspective, I needed to be somewhere where it was, sunny, and I kind of picked Italy on that side of things, living wise, training wise.
I've got a little cool story here from one of the guys that had written in the group, and he said, can you just mention this to Bob? So I thought I'll go with it. He said a story, so he's a UK fan called Carl Myers. He said, if you could tell him, you probably already heard this many times, but he is the nicest, most down-to-earth GP rider ever. And in 94 at Fox Hills, his championship year, he gave me his race pants and my brother his gloves. I still have them now. And he said a year later, me and my mate, a former ACU champion in England, Sean Vukovic, went to his caravan. He invited us in, and Sean gave him a massive framed picture of himself, and he was super happy. He looked around, and there was kit everywhere, and he just said to Sean, take what you want. Another pair of pants stayed in the UK. Ask him if he remembers anything about that framed picture.
I think I do remember that. I tried to, the way I viewed it, and I appreciate those are very kind words. Thank you very much. I kind of, when I was racing, I kind of looked at it as much as I could from a fan or from a little kid standpoint, because I knew where I was when I went up to Marty Smith and asked him for his autograph. He was in his car, we're getting ready to leave, and I had him roll his window down. I mean, he was really kind and nice to me. Yeah. And I said, if I ever get the opportunity to do that, and people kind of came up to me, I just, I wanted to treat people like I wanted to be treated. Yeah. And I think that just, again, I was blessed to be able to race motorcycle for a living. And I just wanted to kind of try to give back as much as I could on that side of things. Oftentimes, and my wife can verify this, when I'm in race mode, I'm not the nicest guy, because I just have to really concentrate and think about focus. Lines and how my bike's set up and all that other stuff. But after the race is done, I can kind of let my guard down and really open up. And again, I'm happy to do that. And I kind of just look at it as, how would you want to be treated if you're in those shoes? And that's kind of the way I tried to look at things.
That's really cool, really cool. A lot of people have mentioned that, so that's really nice. Next one I've got. What do you personally feel was your best achievements in your career, and why?
Well, from the achievement standpoint, I would say on the track, it was obviously winning the championship there. I've been so blessed to be involved in this motorsport industry since the age of, when I turned professional at age 17. I still fortunately make a living off of racing now, because I manage other athletes and riders and stuff. So I think achievement afterwards would have been my involvement in the starting of a foundation that I started, which was Road to Recovery. A friend of mine in America was injured, Jimmy Button, and he didn't have any insurance money or anything. So we basically founded, a friend of mine, Bob Walker, and I founded the Road to Recovery Foundation, and we started doing fundraising on his behalf and raised some money. And then I started thinking back on that. I'm like, man, you know, there's a lot of motocross kids that, you know, don't have insurance or, you know, let's try to help them if they have a career-ending injury, not if they break an arm and they're back 3 weeks later or whatever, but if they have a career-ending injury and they really need it, it would be nice to have a foundation to do that. So that was the thing that I, you know, we did. I was a part of that for 20 years. I recently left the board as chairman and I joined a new, another foundation that I'm equally excited about. It's called Fellowship of Christian Athletes. It's FCA. And it's just, again, it goes back on my drive to teach kids how to ride, you know, show them the ability, you know, the nice things about getting on a motorcycle and riding. Not so much as it pertains to racing, because that's a completely different animal, but having a little kid come up and, you know, 6, 7 years old and starting, maybe they rode in circles around by their neighborhood, but then they actually for the first time get to ride on a track really slow, and that feeling that kid has, I mean, I'll never forget it, you know, when I got the chance to do it. And I'm sure a lot of other riders that are people that have ever had the chance to ride a motorcycle feel the same thing. You get this sense of freedom that you can't get on anything else, and a car doesn't do it either. So that's the kind of thing I really, really enjoy.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Next one. You obviously superbly won the World Championship in '94 after a few runner-up finishes, which we've touched on. Do you actually remember the time when you actually, it was confirmed that you'd won the world title, the feeling, the emotion of it all? What was that? How was
You're
that?
kidding. I want to actually ask any other rider that won that doesn't know it. I mean, I can look over. I have a little. I'll kind of just spin my thing around and show you. I have a little wall in my office that kind of shows. I don't know if you can see some of the plaques and trophies and stuff. I don't have probably as much as a lot of guys, because I really focused on just having the year I won my championship. And some of the other really cool trophies that I got over the years, even some of them from the German championship series that I raced in 1989 and 1990. But absolutely, I remember it to this day. My whole week and everything leading up to that race was, all I had to do was get 7 points to win the championship. So pretty easy, right? So all I did is focus all week long leading up to the race. Is like, get a start, Bob, and ride around, and you could finish 10th and you'll win the championship. So that was the only thing I wanted to do, is get a start. Sat on the line, prayed, ended up getting the whole shot, and I said, I'm going. And I went. I was like, it's almost like I held my breath the entire time, because I rode the fastest, hardest race that I could, because I just wanted to get it over with. And when I crossed the finish line, I had a huge lead. And again, that was just, it was really emotional. Had everyone there, you know, crossing the finish line and getting picked up and thrown. I mean, those things are just, you know, you know, the sad thing is that you see, especially this year in the Supercross series and just in America in general, when someone wins the world champ, or wins a Supercross championship, I mean, look at Tomac. I mean, yay, a couple of high fives, and there was really no emotion or no energy behind it. And I'm like, social distance, can't hug, you know, all crazy stupid stuff that went on and still going on. I mean, I just can't imagine that. You know, when you see in any motocross world championship or any MotoGP or Moto3 or Moto2 race, when they win, I mean, there's emotion to it. There's like crazy people going, you know, just hugging and crying. That's what it's all about. It's so important. And it's so disappointing to see that in America just don't have that. It's almost like, okay, well, what's next? And then it's like, man, you work so hard for this thing. And, you know, Tomac is such a great kid anyways, and to see what he's able to achieve after so many years. And it's just heartening that, you know, he didn't get to celebrate. Like, hopefully he's still celebrating, you know, hopefully he's still parked in Colorado and there's fans over. That was the other thing. I can tell you, when I won my championship in Belgium, it was a month. And I'm not kidding you, it was a month of parties. I went from one function to another, to another, another. It was amazing. It was awesome.
Yeah. Let all those pressures go and get the emotions out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really cool times, special times. Right, another one I've got for you. What was there any riders that you didn't particularly like racing too much? Was there any guys you didn't really get on with and had a few clashes on the track with, or anything like that? Or?
You know what? No, I can honestly say I didn't have any enemies. I kind of did that on purpose. My philosophy was that, don't make any enemies on the track, because if you come up to pass them, or if you're coming up to lap them, you don't want them to give you a hard time.
Sure,
and that was since the first day I turned professional. I did that route because I just wanted to make sure that I was a good, at least when I was going faster than them, they wouldn't give me a hard time or try to crash me, because you're in a position where there's a guy that's just angry at you. All he's looking for is your number and wants to take you out. And that's
it.
You don't want to do.
Well, that was good then. That's a good thing. Next one. Who would you consider as the 3 best riders that you ever competed against during your career?
Well, first one, and this is an easy one, because I rate him the best motorcycle rider ever, most talented rider, I should say. And that's Jean-Michel Bell.
Amazing.
John, he did things on a motorcycle that I've never, even to this day, seen done. And just given the fact that he went into MotoGP racing and actually was pole position and succeeded there, no other rider will ever do that. So that was by far, I think, the most talented rider. Obviously, you look at Supercross, you look at Motocross. You have to throw in Stefan Everts being, multi, 10-time world champion. That doesn't come easy. Ricky Carmichael, I was able to race him. My last year, I raced him twice. And I can thankfully say I beat him the first race straight up, and the second race he beat me. But anyways, and cool. So those 3 guys were kind of the tops for sure.
Yeah, top guys for sure. If you could give advice to any youngster currently racing in the youth motocross who wants to go pro, what would that advice be?
Work hard, dedicate yourself to it, and believe in yourself. If you believe that you will be a champion, you're going to succeed at it. Obviously, you're going to have to put the work in it. Obviously you have to have talent and ability too. You can't, just sit there and want to think if, I can do this and will yourself to do it, but you're finishing last every weekend. That's not going to happen. But I would say that's really the key. I mean, it's really, really tough in any sport these days. And again, I'm very fortunate to manage riders as they come out of amateur into the professional ranks now. And I know how hard it is. You are up against a crazy amount of other riders that want the exact same thing. So it always comes down to working hard, having that determination, and basically knowing that you're going to succeed. You have to know that. If you don't think that you're the best on the line and you can win the race, then don't even show up. That's again my motto. I had 2 beautiful boys that now are 23 and 21. But early on, when they wanted to do what Daddy did, is like, okay, we're going to do a couple of fun races. But I knew what it was going to take to be professional. And I said, look, you guys, I don't think have the ability to really go after a Supercross championship or a motocross championship, because I know what it takes. And it's a lot of dedication and a lot of determination and the will. And so anyways, I would just say the young riders coming up, those are the 3 areas that you go after. But most importantly is just know the fact, in a quiet way, not to be in a cocky way, but know the fact that you're the best. You can succeed at it.
Confidence, sure. Okay, I've got a few more for you. You raced a lot on the 125s and the 250 2-strokes in the GPs. Did you have a preference between the 2, ideally, or 125 or 250?
Being that I was 5'9", 5'10", weighed 150 something pounds. I always gravitated more to the 125. I felt that it was something that you had to have the finesse and the riding style to ride a 125 different. That moving in and out of the ruts and trying to jump over bumps to get more traction. And not the 250, you don't. The 250 was just, again, a little bit harder for me to ride because it was heavier and faster. But I would say for me, it was 125 just because of my size and kind of the things that I was able to do on 125 versus the 250.
Mm-hmm. Although you actually seemed as good on both, to be fair.
It was again, I used a lot of that finesse that I got in the 125, that when I got on a 250, I could ride it a lot easier because I had that power. And so I would move still around a lot of the bumps, and like people like, well, it looked like you were on a parade lap out there and you actually got second fastest time. I'm like, well, I found a way to ride around the track as easy as possible. And that was the other thing that kind of, when I first came over, again, at 18 years old, I would go to races and I would be really fast in the beginning, but I would never last 40 minutes, especially after the 2 laps. So I basically had to learn how to ride really smooth to make my body last. Again, because I was really small in the beginning. I didn't even start growing until I was 23, 24 years old, really. When I first came over to Europe, I was just 5 foot tall, weighed under 100 pounds. So, I mean, I was a little teeny guy. So I had to learn to ride a motorcycle a lot easier than most. And that's what kind of elevated me on my technique and everything else, how to ride.
Smooth is always good. Smooth, good. Over the years in the GPs, you had some great riders and competitors as teammates. Were there any specifically that you got on well with? And was there any teammates you didn't really click with?
I would say Donnie Schmidt. And somebody that really taught me a lot about how to become a champion and to over deliver when you're training and stuff like that. I mean, I've never experienced another individual in my life that dedicated himself like he did. So he taught me a lot. I still felt that I was better than him on a motorcycle on a lap to lap, but again, his determination and that year that he beat me twice, in World Championship. So he beat me in 1990 and 125, which we weren't teammates that year, but then 92, he beat me straight up. And so I learned a lot from him. Again, I wouldn't say there was anyone that I didn't get on with at all. Even the year that I was only a really short amount of time living in Belgium and being Stefan Everett's teammate, him and I always got on really well. Again, when you're on the track, those are your enemies, but off the track, you can kind of let that stuff go. So I never really had anyone that I didn't enjoy.
That's good. When did you actually finish competitive racing? And do you ride at all now, if at all? And if so, what bikes do you ride?
So I finished my 1997 was my last year racing for Giorgio Foy in the Italian team. I won a Grand Prix, my last Grand Prix that I won, which was in Spain. Actually broke my elbow in the second moto. Finished the race, finished third or whatever, was able enough to win the race overall. But again, it goes back to that every year I was racing, I broke something, and that was it. I broke my elbow that year, and it cost me the rest of the championship that year. That was my last year. I did a national, I think it was in 1999 or 2000, because I was working with FMF Honda, and they, oftentimes I was still maybe better than their teammate or our riders riding for nationals. Still, because I loved riding, and I'd go do testing and stuff with them all the time. So they kind of conned me into doing a national that year. And I did that race, but it wasn't really a great race because we had bike problems, and I wasn't, I'm like, look guys, I don't get paid to do this anymore. I almost endoed off this big, huge jump because the bike bogged, we had carburation issues, and I was like, I brought it in, but that was it. That was the last time. I had been riding up until probably 2 or 3 years ago, still not a whole bunch, but some. Now I still do enjoy to go riding, but it's off-road. The reason for that is every time I get on a motocross track, your mind switches off and you go back to, hey, you're a racer, go fast, and you don't forget. Your body doesn't forget how to go fast. I mean, you just go faster and faster. I should say your mind doesn't forget, but your body says, hey, we sit at a computer all day long and answer phones. We don't train and all that stuff. So I purposely don't get on motocross tracks for that reason, because I don't want to get injured. I don't know if probably a lot of your viewers have probably seen the chicken Natasevich video that went down last week. And, a buddy of mine sent me that, and I'm like, dude, that's the number one reason I don't get out there and do it, because I would be that guy that, I'd be Bradshaw, just going over the bars and compound fracture my arm, because I would just go. And it was unfortunate, I know that those juices get flowing. And again, your mind just goes back to all those happy days of riding. And again, it's not like something you forget how to do it. I mean, there's riders that could go out and beat a lot of riders. The cool thing, I don't know if you also guys saw it during the pandemic, they had that one race that they invited all the kind of legends and stuff back. Yeah. How fast was Kevin Windham? I mean,
I know, he was super smooth as well.
Ridiculous seeing that guy, big old gut, beard, and everything else, crushing it. That was a lot of fun to watch too. I just again, but I would never go do that because I don't ride day to day anyway. So for me, it's not something I could go bang out laps. But anyways, do you need me for anything? Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
Sorry. Okay. I guess I'm okay.
That's okay.
So it was just, it was fun seeing that stuff. But again, I don't want to purposely get on a motocross track just because I don't want to get injured. It's something I don't do enough to train and all that stuff for it. So.
Okay. I've only got a couple more for you. Basically, what I said earlier about what have you done yourself since your motocross days. Obviously, you've touched on that. Do you actually enjoy that side of things, doing the agent and all that? Have you really enjoyed doing that?
I absolutely love it. Don't tell my employer, but I would do this. It gets me to the events. It gets me up to the events. It gets me again back to Europe as well, which is really dear to me. I get to see a lot of friends and stuff. And also I go back to being able to help younger riders and seeing them achieve and succeed their childhood dreams. And that to me is just something that, I've been involved in racing my whole life, and being able to at least give back some of that experience is what just makes it all worth it. So I have the very best job in the world. And I work for a company that's just amazing. And, gives me this ability to, right now I'm at home. I work from my home office. I travel when I want to travel. I do my job just like anyone else, but it's on the phone and computer and going to events. So that's my day-to-day life.
What's the actual name of your company?
It's Wasserman. So we're actually the world's largest athlete representation company. We have over 2,000 athletes worldwide, from football, soccer, all the way to, down to motocross. And there's only one sport we don't do actively, and that's tennis. I only oversee the motorsport aspect of it in the company, but we have, I think, close to 1,000 employees. We have offices all around the world. So again, it's really, really great to be involved with a company that's, when we started again 20 years ago, it was really, really small, and to see it grow into this, it's been a really, really cool thing to
Are you allowed to mention any of the clients' names that you work with? Or?
Right now, one of the guys that I'm really excited about working with is it's his first year, his rookie season into MotoGP, and that's Brad Binder, South African rider. Coming from Moto2 and Moto3 world champion, going into MotoGP. And I also work with Bradley Smith. I've had him for, I think, 8 or 9 years. He's a UK. Always loved Bradley. He's just been a pleasure to work with. And I've just had again, I have the best job in the world because I get to work for these guys that I call my friends, I've, early on I had, so many motocross guys that I helped bring from Europe over to America. I would say Chad Reed was probably one of the biggest that I worked with for a long time. Sebastian Tortelli, Grant Langston. It goes all the list goes on and on. I could sit here. I know I'm going to forget guys, but I don't want to. I'd say the last guy that I was involved with bringing over had been is Dylan Fernandez. Even though I don't manage his day to day, I knew because his manager that was over in Europe used to work with Wasserman, worked with me. So we ended up doing a deal, and now Jimmy Button is taking over his role over here. But that was kind of the last motocross guy that we helped get over.
Another one that's been successful as well.
Yep. It's going on to the big class next year. So he's got himself a couple titles in the lights, and it's going over to take on the big guy. So
that'd be interesting. The last thing I was going to say, is there any shout outs or anything you want to make, or normally ask the guys if they're on any social media or anything that if people want to follow them? Or
well, I think to finish again, I've had a blessed life. I've been involved in the motorcycle industry my whole since age of 6 basically. I met amazing people. I now have the best job in the world working with Wasserman. I get to travel still to Europe, even though mostly it's for MotoGP, not so much motocross standpoint anymore, but still involved with that. I love working with my guys, Bradley Smith, all the riders that I've worked with in the past. I want to give a shout out to probably Jamie Dobb as well. Him and I are still, we still talk all the time, and he worked with our company for years as well. Then he moved on to Monster and doing some other stuff. So I still keep in contact with a lot of guys over there, but I guess, that's about it.
Wow, Bob, it's been amazing. Awesome to meet you. I really appreciate your time. The guys in the UK have absolutely loved your career, and you were an idol to many over here. Just thought I'd let you know that for sure.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You were a top guy and a top rider, so it was amazing to follow your career, and I really appreciate you doing this for us.
Okay, no problem. Anytime.
Yeah.
It's just awesome to be able to have people like yourself, still getting some interviews out there. I look at my wall sometimes and I'm like, oh, man, I remember those days back there, But again, now it's just awesome. Again, I'm blessed to be able to still go to Europe and still talk to people and see different team owners and riders that I've kind of grew up with. So that's been awesome. And England is one of it's kind of like a second home to me, because it was so essential for me when I was racing to be able to leave Italy, because no one spoke, I didn't speak Italian at the time, and to go somewhere I could speak to other people. And England, there's there's so many friendly people there that just, it was just amazing experience for me.
Yeah, you were majorly loved over here, that's for sure.
Well, thank you for doing what you're doing, because I watched some of those interviews and stuff. It's really cool that you're doing this, and keep it up, because I get a kick out of watching other athletes and other riders from the past and stuff as well. It's awesome.
Awesome. Thanks ever so much, Bob. And take it easy.
Yep, will do. Have a good rest of the week.
And you, and hopefully speak to you soon.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you.
Top man. Thank you ever so much. Top man. Thank you.
All right.